Welcome to My Take. Today, a question that cuts right to the heart of history, fairness, and money. Britain is considering charging foreign tourists to enter some of its most famous museums, places like the British Museum, the National Gallery, and the Natural History Museum. For 5 years, these institutions have been free for everyone. Now, that could change, and the backlash has been fierce. But buried inside this debate is a question that doesn't get asked enough. If Britain had never taken these artifacts in the first place, would they even exist today? Last month, UK Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy announced that the government would, quote, work with the museums sector to explore the potential opportunities that charging international visitors at national museums could bring. The move follows an independent review by former Labour MP Baroness Margaret Hodge, who recommended a levy on foreign visitors to help fund the arts. The numbers give you a sense of the scale. Between 2023 and 2024, 43% of all visitors to British museums and galleries came from overseas. That's roughly 17 million trips. One figure close to the discussion suggested a fee of between £15 and £20 per person could become the norm, comparable to the Louvre in Paris, which charges up to €32, or the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, which charges $30. The policy, if implemented, would apply to international tourists only. British residents would continue to enter for free. And crucially, the proposal hinges on the rollout of a digital ID system to tell the difference between a domestic and a foreign visitor, something that doesn't yet exist. The UK's digital ID system, the mechanism that would tell a British resident apart from a foreign tourist at the museum door, is provisionally forecast to cost £1.8 billion over 3 years, with no specific funding yet identified to pay for it. But here is where the story gets complicated. Many of the objects sitting inside these museums were not bought on the open market. They were taken sometimes by force during Britain's colonial era. The Benin bronzes, for example, in 1897, British troops invaded the Kingdom of Benin in what is now Nigeria and looted some 4,000 sculptures from the royal palace. Over a century later, they remain on display in London, Berlin, and New York, but not in Nigeria, where they came from. The Elgin marbles, or the Parthenon sculptures, were removed from Athens in the early 1800s by Lord Elgin, the British ambassador to the Ottoman Empire. Greece has been asking for them back since 1832. Egypt wants its Rosetta Stone returned. Easter Island wants its Moai statue back. Ghana's foreign minister recently told Reuters that charging foreign visitors to view objects taken from their countries raises serious issues of, quote, fairness, particularly where restitution talks are still ongoing. And the advocacy group, Open Restitution Africa, put it plainly. Africans already face visa requirements and high travel costs just to see objects taken from their own heritage. Quote, introducing entry fees further compounds these inequalities. Meanwhile, the outgoing director of the Tate Gallery, Maria Balshaw, asked the question many are thinking. What does it say to people from the rest of the world if we say, we've got your stuff, but we're going to charge you to come in? And yet, here is the question that defenders of Western museums have raised for decades, and it deserves serious consideration. Would many of these artifacts even exist today if they had stayed in their countries of origin? Take China. When Mao Zedong launched the Cultural Revolution in 1966, Red Guards were sent across the country under the slogan, Destroy the Four Olds, old customs, old culture, old habits, old ideas. Gangs smashed up temples, burned ancient texts, destroyed artwork, and demolished libraries and cemeteries. In Tibet alone, the destruction of nearly all of its over 6,000 monasteries was carried out with only 8 still intact by the end of the 1970s. At the Temple of Confucius in Shandong, over 6,600 cultural artifacts from paintings to scrolls to graves were destroyed in a single raid. Thousands of years of cultural heritage were lost or severely damaged in just 10 years. The Forbidden City itself was only saved because Premier Zhou Enlai personally ordered the gates shut and deployed the military to keep the Red Guards out. Now consider Iraq. The ancient city of Nimrud, the first Assyrian capital, founded 3,200 years ago, was bulldozed by ISIS in 2015. But here is the remarkable footnote. British archaeologists had excavated Nimrud in the 1840s and sent dozens of its massive stone sculptures to the British Museum and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Those pieces survived. The ones left behind did not. ISIS also rampaged through the Mosul Museum, Iraq's second largest, toppling statues and smashing others with hammers. In Syria, they blew up the 2,000-year-old temples at Palmyra. In Afghanistan, the Taliban used high explosives over 25 days to destroy the Bamiyan Buddha statues and UNESCO World Heritage monuments that had stood since the 6th century. The Taliban destroyed the Buddha statues. ISIS destroyed Nimrud. China's Red Guards burned the scrolls. The uncomfortable reality is political upheaval, religious extremism, and war have been among the most destructive forces in human history, and Western museums, for all their complicated origins, have sometimes been the reason certain objects survived at all. Of course, that does not make the taking of them morally clean. During the 19th century, colonial European powers, their explorers, soldiers, missionaries, and collectors acquired vast numbers of cultural objects under conditions that would not meet today's ethical standards. Some artifacts were seized during military campaigns. Others were removed from archaeological sites without permission. Still others were purchased from local officials who may not have had the authority or freedom to sell them. The British Museum itself acknowledges this. It states openly that its history and collection are shaped by empire and colonial exploitation. There are over 900 objects from Benin alone in its collection, many acquired directly after the 1897 military expedition. The debate is not black and white. Some objects were genuinely rescued from neglect or destruction. Others were taken by force. Many fall somewhere in between. And today, according to a 2018 French government report, 90% of Africa's cultural heritage sits in the major museum collections of the West. So why is this coming to a head now? The answer is money. The UK's Department for Culture, Media and Sport has faced real-term funding cuts year after year. Analysis shows that government spending on culture per person has dropped by more than 32% since 2010. Over half of British national museums reported being in a worse financial position in 2025 than 3 years earlier. One anonymous museum curator described national museums as basically on their knees financially. The V&A's director, Tristram Hunt, has said that since 2010, government funding for his museum has fallen by 30%. Some local councils have scrapped museum funding entirely. The argument from those who support entry fees is simple. The current model is broken. One leader of a major London museum called the proposal very sensible, adding that government funding is constantly being squeezed. But opponents say a tourist tax on overnight stays already being explored for London would be a far better solution. Research from the Charity Art Fund found that 72% of the British public support a tourist levy that would subsidize free entry to national museums. That way, everyone benefits and no one is turned away at the door. So where does that leave us? On one side, museums that are genuinely struggling, holding collections that represent the breadth of human civilization, some acquired through exploration and purchase, others through conquest and coercion. On the other side, nations and communities who were never asked, watching their heritage sit behind glass in London while they face visa queues and now, potentially, entry fees, just to see it. The question of whether these objects should be returned is one conversation. The question of who should pay to see them in the meantime is another. And the question of whether some of them would even exist without Western institutions, well, that is perhaps the most uncomfortable conversation of all. History is rarely simple, and this story is proof of that. So, we want to hear from you. Do you think foreign tourists should pay an entry fee to visit Britain's national museums? Should citizens of countries whose heritage is on display be given free access? Or should the UK find another way to fund these institutions without closing the door on the world? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. This is a debate that belongs to all of us because so does this history. I'm Laura Tang. That is my take for tonight. See you tomorrow.